This may stir things up, but Tom Holland is definitely the best Spider-Man we've ever had. So this review is going to have a few spoilers about Endgame. There's no way around it. So if you're one of the 4 people on Earth who have yet to see Avengers Endgame, you may not want to watch this video, okay? Cool? Here we go. Spider-Man Far From Home takes place obviously after the events of Avengers Endgame. And now we have a Peter Parker who is trying to make sense of the world and who he is as a superhero and as Spider-Man in a world that doesn't have Tony Stark in it. Peter goes on a European trip with some of his classmates, and while he's overseas, he encounters Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio. Tom Holland is still awesome as Spider-Man, and he is still awesome at playing the teenager that the character is. He's reluctant, timid at times, conflicted, and brave, and even with this sense of awe that he still retains. I really like how they deal with the issue of grief and loss from the events of Endgame and losing Tony, and not just Tony, but all of the other characters, the Avengers that we lost. I love how they deal with them, but specifically Tony Stark, and how Peter has to just navigate through that. As Peter comes to terms with that, I mean, it gives his character just more depth. It makes him more relatable, it makes him more sympathetic, and it makes me love him as a character that much more. Jake Gyllenhaal is Quentin Beck, and he has some really cool Doctor Strange-esque powers. I mean, you've seen him in the trailers where he's like this, you know, he's flying around. He has these green like symbols floating around his hands and stuff. It's just really cool to see because we don't necessarily know, at least at the beginning, where does he come from? Where do these powers? What are these powers? Oh, what is he? I mean, what's he all about? He really is an awesome addition to the film. And then Jake Gyllenhaal himself, with that vulnerable intensity that he brings, it was just a blast to watch on screen. And his charisma with Tom Holland, the two together, they worked really well off of each other, and I really enjoyed them. We get a big helping of Nick Fury in this, and Happy Hogan has returned for some appearances. Now, there is a lot of great action throughout this film. I mean, there are so many different scenes that just lend themselves to a lot of fun and a lot of great camera angles and just shots that they do and how they frame them and how they maneuver them. And some of them may just be total special effects, but it was hard to tell. And so I really enjoyed that. But I didn't like all of them. There was one that involved Peter and a bus. And that's all I'm going to say, but it was cheesy. It was ill-placed. And as I watched it happen, I was like, ooh, you did that. And yuck. But that scene was more of the exception than the rule, because all the other times I loved watching just all of the action unfold. And you have, you know, all of these creatures that are happening. I mean, we see some of them in the trailer, and I loved that, and I loved how they were formed and how they moved and what they did. But then you also have Mysterio and you have Peter, and just as his web swinging is going through and how the camera follows him in his movements, so much fun to watch. Now let's talk a little bit about that stealth suit. I know a lot of people were like so excited about this and just thrilled. Oh my gosh, it's a stealth suit. It's a stealth suit. I was underwhelmed by it, really. I mean, I had an idea of what I thought it would do, and it didn't do that. And yeah, that's it. I'm not going to say much more about the suit itself, what it can or can't do, because I think it gives it away. But for me, I had this idea like, ooh, this is going to be cool. Now, don't get me wrong. The all blacked out suit is cool looking, but I just wanted more from it than what I got. Now, parts of the story are a bit thin in this. I mean, the whole European trip and why they're going, and then the purpose for it, seems a little confused and maybe even a little bit contrived. Like, I was like, wait, why are we going? And then I hear this reason, and then but they're not doing any of that, and it seems more of like this, or is it just vacation? Just call it vacation. I'm totally good with that. I don't really care why you're there, but then when you frame it around a school trip, I kind of wonder why, and I want to know, and then when you don't really give it to me, But other parts of the story, though, I really, really liked. I mean, I love how they give perspectives on pre- and post-Endgame events. I thought that was really cool and just unique in the way that they did it. It pulled me in. It explained a lot of things, not necessarily in the way that maybe I agree with, but I'm going with it, and I enjoyed it, and I liked how they presented it to me, and it was easy to understand. So, you know, it kind of wrapped it up. It gave it gave an answer to it, good to go. This movie is just a lot of fun. I mean, it's everything you want in a great superhero movie. There's action, humor, great special effects, and characters that you can totally root for. I think even if you're a casual Marvel fan, then you can find something to enjoy in this. You know, if you're going along with a bunch of friends, you're like, ah, yeah, it's an entertaining movie, don't get me wrong. But if you are a fan of the Marvel movies, of the MCU, then I think you're going to have an absolute blast with this. I mean, it was just a lot of fun to watch and a lot of fun to be sucked into the story. And again, I don't, like I say, every time that I review any type of Marvel movie, I don't read the comic books. I only watch the movies. So I can only come from the perspective of what am I being shown on screen. I don't know what the story does. It jive with the comic books? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Doesn't matter to me. Is the movie itself entertaining? Is it worth it when I go and plop down my money at the box office? You know what? It gets more expensive, so it better be entertaining. This one was. One thing that I thought was cool, and I didn't know this going in, but John Watts, who directed Spider-Man Homecoming, also directs Spider-Man Far From Home. And so what I like about that is that we get continuity of story and feel and just look of the entire thing. I mean, there are new additions to it, new additions to the story, new additions to the special effects, the visuals, all of that. But it still maintains this unified vision. Kind of like when we have the Russo brothers directing, you know, Endgame, well, before that, Infinity War, but just the two, so you have this unified look, feel, story, all of that. I loved it, and I love that John Watts did that within this because it felt good. Even though the story did have a few points that didn't totally jive with me, I did have a ton of fun watching Spider-Man Far From Home. I do think it's a really great entry into the MCU. I am curious at how Marvel characters that are owned by Sony, or that I guess Sony has the rights to, however that works, like in this one, I mean, it is a Sony Pictures movie, or a Sony Studios movie, it's a Sony movie, whatever, but Marvel Studios. I'm curious at what else they're going to do. How are they going to roll in other Sony properties that are part of the MCU, or at least part of the Marvel catalog? I don't know. I don't know exactly what's on the slate for that. I am curious and I am excited to see. Maybe we'll get Venom in there. Who knows? That could be really cool. I do know that, you know, from Homecoming, I mean, there's Scorpion that is probably going to show up at some point because we had that in an end credit scene. So there you go. Now there is one mid-credit scene and one post-credit scene. You must stay for both of them. Oh, whoa. Both just... There will be reactions, absolutely, by people in the theater when you watch this, because both of them, neither of them are really throwaways. Just there you go. There's no sex or nudity, but there is profanity and violence. I give Spider-Man Far From Home 4.5 out of 5 couches. I personally think that Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man we've had. What are your thoughts on that? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.